Each and every NFL team has expectations entering the season, with some teams' expectations obviously bigger than others. The Kansas City Chiefs are back-to-back defending champions, and their expectations are a lot different than a team like the Washington Commanders, who entered the year with a new head coach and rookie quarterback. Obviously, the Commanders exceeded expectations and then some, but the expectations heading into the year for each team were vastly different. Unfortunately, not every team can live up to their once lofty expectations, and in today's video, we are going to break down 4 of the most disappointing NFL teams in 2024. And to be clear, this is not a ranking of the most disappointing NFL teams. This is a video generally discussing 4 of the most disappointing teams this year. Not every team in today's video had Super Bowl aspirations, but they certainly had higher expectations than how they performed for most, if not all, of 2024. There is a lot to break down with each of the 4 teams in today's video, and without further ado, let's begin. And we are starting today's video with the Chicago Bears. The Bears entered the 2024 season with a lot of excitement as they had a really busy offseason. They, of course, selected former USC quarterback Caleb Williams with the first overall pick, and this was after they were coming off of a 7-win season in 2023. And I think why there was a lot of excitement specifically for the 2024 Bears, aside from the obvious, was the 2023 Bears started out with a 2-7 record, then finished the year 5-3 and had wins over teams like the Detroit Lions, who of course went to the NFC Championship game last year, and the Arizona Cardinals, who were also improving as the year went on. And they didn't just beat the Lions, they beat them by double digits in a game where Jared Goff threw 2 interceptions, and in a game where DJ Moore scored twice, and the future of this franchise legitimately looked good, especially when you factor in that the Bears fleeced the Panthers, because at the time, the Panthers drafted a quarterback into a horrific situation, and their future looked very dim, and the Bears defense only allowed 93 points over the final 6 games of 2023, which equates to just 15.5 per game, and they also forced 15 turnovers within those 6 games. Obviously, when you think about the struggles the Bears have went through in 2024, a lot of it unfortunately gets placed on Caleb Williams' shoulders for not throwing for 30 touchdowns as a rookie and immediately coming in and playing at a Pro Bowl level despite all of the hype he received. But it obviously wouldn't be fair to place the entire blame for the 2024 Bears failures solely on Caleb Williams. I mean, there's a reason both the offensive coordinator and head coach have been fired, and there's a reason the Bears fired a head coach midseason for the first time in franchise history, a 100-plus year history, might I add. There's a few games that I think summarize the 2024 Bears season in terms of the frustration and disappointment, and the first, of course, is the Washington game back in Week 8. There was a chance for the Bears to improve to 5-2 coming off the bye, and as we know, they ultimately did not improve to 5-2, but there was a lot to look forward to because they were playing the Cardinals and Patriots in the ensuing weeks after the Commanders game, and there was a non-zero chance this team could have been 7-2 through 9 games. But the Hail Mary happened, and it's not enough for a regular Hail Mary to beat a team. There was the whole Tyreek Stevenson drama along with it, and then the Bears would go on to get outscored by a combined 48-12 against the Cardinals and Patriots. The end of the Green Bay game with a blocked field goal is truly a perfect representation of how things generally go for each franchise, and Green Bay left the Windy City with a win that dropped the Bears to 4-6. The final 2 games that I think summarize the Bears' 2024 season are, of course, the complete mismanagement during the Lions game, and unfortunately for the Bears, it couldn't have been a normal 1 o'clock game. No, it had to be on Thanksgiving in front of everyone, and in a year where it was the largest Thanksgiving audience ever. And then last but not least, the 49ers game in which the Bears were outgained 319-4 in the first half, which was the lowest yards total of any team in any half this millennium, and in a half where the Bears had more punts with 5 than they had total yards with 4. It's been an extremely disappointing season for the Bears, and here's to hoping they fix it in 2025. Next up is the New York Jets, and not only has 2024 been a disappointing season for them, but it's also been a pretty embarrassing season for several reasons. Let's start at the beginning though, as they opened up with a 32-19 loss to the San Francisco 49ers, and if you guys remember that game, despite it only being a 13-point loss for the Jets, I would argue this game was never really that close. I would argue this was more of a 3+ score loss, and this was in a game where Jordan Mason ran for over 140 yards and a touchdown, and San Francisco thoroughly dominated this game. Surprisingly, the Jets were 2-1 at a point, as they had wins over the Titans and Patriots, and the Titans game was in a game where Will Levis had one of the Will Levis plays, and the Patriots was a win on Thursday night over a very bad team. Their other two wins in 2024 were a win over the Texans on Thursday night, in which CJ Stroud was sacked 8 times, and a win recently over the Jags, in which Devontae Adams went for nearly 200 yards and 2 touchdowns just to get a win over the Jags. Again, this was the Jacksonville Jaguars, not a team that's going to the Super Bowl by any stretch of the imagination. There's been countless embarrassing moments for the Jets over the course of the 2024 season, whether it was Robert Saleh getting fired to the surprise of everyone in a decision that owner Woody Johnson made seemingly out of nowhere, or most recently, the fact that the Jets wouldn't trade for Jerry Jeudy this offseason because, and I quote, his Madden rating wasn't high enough, end quote. And I think there was a triple whammy in one for the Jets, a disappointment and embarrassment to the franchise, and last but not least, potentially steering away free agents, because if you were a free agent, why would you want to go to this franchise in the first place after hearing the countless things come out during the 2024 season? There's also been several embarrassing losses down the stretch, whether it was the blowout in Arizona, whether it was losing to the Colts, or the Seahawks in a game in which you were up by 2 scores, or most recently, a loss to the Rams in which you only put up 9 points in your own stadium. This has been a very disappointing season for the Jets, and a lot of Jets fans have said over the course of the 2024 season that without a doubt this is one of the least likable Jets teams they've supported over the past several years. Remember, this is a franchise that hasn't been to the playoffs in over a decade, and out of the 4 major sports in America, which are of course football, baseball, hockey, and basketball, the Jets have the current longest postseason drought at 14 years. This has been a very disappointing season for the Jets, and you also have to factor in there was an Aaron Rodgers reality show throughout the course of the 2024 season. Overall, it's been a very underwhelming season, and that's the best way to describe the 2024 Jets season. Disappointing, frustrating, and underwhelming. And now, let's have a word from today's sponsor. The holidays are finally here, and my partners at DraftKings have the perfect gift for you. Right now, all new DraftKings customers who bet just $5 will get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Just download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and sign up using my promo code ANALYSIS. And don't forget to stay in on the action and use your $150 in bonus bets on DraftKings Same Game Parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. You can combine multiple bets together from the same game. And if sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. If you are like me and don't enjoy going outside when it's cold and are watching all of the games anyway, why not spice it up and give it a shot? Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, and new customers who use my code ANALYSIS and bet just $5 in any wager will get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. That's promo code ANALYSIS, and a big thank you to DraftKings, an official partner of the NFL, for sponsoring today's video. The New York Giants are up, and this one is pretty obvious as to why they're in today's video. I know this may seem like a completely different season or year entirely, but there was a point where the Giants started out with a 2-3 record after they beat the Seattle Seahawks 29-20 at Lumen Field back in Week 5. After that game, I didn't think they were going to make a run by any means and that their season was going to be turned around, but I also didn't think that that would be their last win before Christmas Day and that they would go on to lose 10 in a row. After that game, they had 3 very difficult games, as they had to play Cincinnati at home, Philadelphia at home, and then travel to Pittsburgh, and I was hopeful they could win one of those games and ultimately keep their season alive. I didn't expect them to, of course, but after beating the Seahawks in a game where Tyrone Tracy ran for 129 yards, I thought this team may have enough offensive juice to play spoiler once or twice down the stretch and give a good team a surprising loss that could seriously impact the playoff race. But they didn't, and in the 10 games since the Seattle game, they have scored 20 points just twice, which was against the Commanders in Week 9 and against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day. They've been outscored 140-59 in 5 games since their Week 11 bye, and they both look and play like a team who is mentally checked out. And since their Week 11 bye, they've suffered 3 losses of 20-plus points, including the very first game they came off their Week 11 bye, which was against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as they lost 30-7 and allowed over 450 yards of opposing offense. They also lost 35-14 to the Ravens, and sure, there's no shame in losing to the Ravens, as they are a very, very good football team and have an MVP candidate in Lamar Jackson, but losing 35-14 at home in a game where you are 17-point underdogs is another story. And most recently, they lost to the Atlanta Falcons 34-7, and they lost the turnover battle 3-1 and allowed 2 defensive touchdowns, one to Jesse Bates and one to Matt Judon 2. I think what also should be noted is Kyle Pitts had an all-time drop/meme moment in that game, and this game, despite already being a 27-point loss for the Giants, looked a lot worse than the final score indicated, and it could have easily been a 41-7 loss for New York. Outside of Dexter Lawrence and the 2 rookies in Tyrone Tracy and Malik Neighbors, there hasn't been a lot to look forward to on any given Sunday. I know Andrew Thomas has missed most of the year, and Dexter, of course, missed the past couple of games, and obviously that's huge, no pun intended, but this was a bad team before those guys went down with injury. There was also the releasing of former quarterback Daniel Jones and going through the embarrassment of the offseason Hard Knocks, where the owner of the team said to the general manager that he would have trouble sleeping if Saquon Barkley went to the Eagles, and not only did Saquon Barkley go to the Eagles, but he may break the single-season rushing record in his first year with the team. The 2024 Giants had it all: poor on-the-field play, which will probably result in a number 1 overall pick, as I'll be honest, I would be pretty surprised if they win one of their final 2 games, unless Philly completely rests their starters in Week 18. They also had public embarrassment from a former player leaving and having an MVP caliber season elsewhere, the releasing of a quarterback who was not having a good year in Daniel Jones, and they also had injuries as if that wasn't enough. Perhaps the final 2 cherries on top were playing in New York, which is obviously a huge media market, and like we said, the owner getting embarrassed on Hard Knocks. This is, without a doubt, one of the most disappointing teams in all of 2024. Next up is the New Orleans Saints, and I'll be honest, a lot of my frustration and disappointment with the 2024 Saints has to do with a decision that was made before the season started in bringing back head coach Dennis Allen. Prior to being fired after Week 9, after the Saints started 2-7 after starting the year 2-0 and then proceeding to have 7 straight losses, Dennis Allen entered the 2024 season lifetime with a coaching record of 24-46. That, of course, doesn't exactly scream winner, but the Saints had a crazy start to the 2024 season. If you guys don't remember, they put up 40-plus points in each of their first 2 games in a win over the Panthers, and then a surprising win over the Cowboys in which they went to Dallas and won by 25 points. But as we know, it's largely been downhill since, and they now are 5-10, and since their 2-0 start, they are just 3-10, and have put up 25 or more points in just 2 games since then, and in one of those games, they were actually beat by 3 scores, as Tampa beat them with a score of 51-27. The only other game they put up 25 or more points was against the Browns, in which they won 35-14, and there's also a reason Cleveland will probably be selecting in the top 5 of the 2025 NFL Draft. It's been a very disappointing season for New Orleans, not just from the on-the-field play, but there's also been a couple of things that have been out of their control, most notably Chris Olave's concussions. Chris Olave is a very talented player, and it's unfortunate that he had to deal with injuries at the rate that he has, but that also plays a part into why the Saints season has been so disappointing. They have a player in Chris Olave who I think is a perennial 1,000-yard receiver, at least in terms of talent, not be able to play due to things out of their control. Football is, of course, the ultimate team game, and it's the next man up mentality, but just being honest, there's not a lot of players that can step up and do what Chris Olave does on a week-to-week basis. Obviously, that, again, is out of the Saints and Chris Olave's control, but that's kind of the season that it's been for the 2024 Saints. They've also dealt with a lot of injuries along the interior offensive line, and there was a significant difference between weeks 1 and 2 and weeks 3 through 5 after they dealt with major injuries up front. It seems like it's been a day late and a dollar short for the 2024 Saints for most of the year, again, excluding the first 2 games, and as we all know, the NFL season is a marathon and definitely not a sprint. Most recently, they are coming off of a 34-0 loss to the Packers, and when you enter Lambeau Field near the end of the year with Spencer Rattler as your starting quarterback and you are down several players, you are going to lose that game 99.9% of the time. You just hope to make the score look a little prettier than how the game was actually played. As we know, the score was very ugly and the game was also very ugly, and I would argue that a 34-0 loss really doesn't show how bad this game was for New Orleans. The Saints have had a very long 2024 season outside of the first 2 games, and to be completely honest, I don't know what the next steps for this franchise are. They have an aging roster that's also very expensive, but because Mickey Loomis does the Mickey Loomis cap dollars thing, where he doesn't exactly free up space and just goes on a year-to-year basis rather than try to plan out a year or 2 in advance, the Saints are also in a very tough cap situation. Yes, they can free up money by cutting a couple of veterans or by restructuring or even trading a couple of veterans, but that's not really what they do, and I have a lot of concerns with their future. The 2024 Saints season to me was at best going to be a wild card round loss no matter how you sliced it, but they aren't even going to get there, not even close. They were recently eliminated from the playoffs, and they already have double-digit losses in the 2024 season, and this season, in a lot of ways, due to injury, due to disappointment, and due to lack of good play on the field, is a season best forgotten. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please like and subscribe, as only about 44% of people watching are subscribed and helps the channel tremendously. Thank you to DraftKings for sponsoring today's video, and until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.